The Oxford Movement. The Oxford Movement was fundamentally religious in and had nothing to do with politics. It is also known as the Tractarian Movement because on the 14th of July 1833, John Keble was preaching from the pulpit of the University Church at Oxford on national apostasy stirred enthusiasm which led John Henry Newman to launch the series Tracts for the Times. The tracts advocated the revival of doctrines which had become obsolete among a majority in the Church of England. Among the various aims of Oxford Movement was to rehabilitate the dignity of the Church against the interference of the state. Secondly, its aim was to fight against liberalism to restore reverence for the rituals and dogmas of the Roman faith, and to oppose to nationalism in matter concerns with Church. With the growth of science, there was a tendency to put religion to test on scientific basis. T.S. Huxley and many others turn agnostic when they failed to test the religious faith on the touchstone of science. The Oxford Movement stood against too much insistence on reason and proof in religious matters. It sought to revive the faith, rituals and dogmas of Roman Catholic religion. The Oxford Movement was allied with Romantic movement and derives much inspiration from the Middle Ages. One thinker says the Oxford Movement was in its essence an attempt to reconstruct the English Church in harmony with the Romantic ideal. It stood for the restoration of poetry, the mystic symbolism and the spiritual power that characterized the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages. The Oxford Movement also influenced the poets like Alfred Lord Tennyson, William Morris, Christina Rossetti, and Charlotte Yonge. The real spirit behind the movement was not that of Keble or Cardinal Newman. Sir Walter Scott of the Waverley novels imparted it new vigor and force. The Oxford Movement stood against the secular authority intermingling in the affairs of the Church. Other protagonists of the movement were James A. Froude, William G. Ward and Richard W. Church. Though religious in nature, the Oxford Movement greatly influenced the literary taste of its age. The Tractarian Movement can be summed up in a short sentence: I believe in one Catholic and Apostolic Church. The movement began at Oxford in 1833 with John Keble's famous sermon on national apostasy. Cardinal Newman, John Keble and E.B. Pusey wrote about 90 pamphlets called as Tracts for the Time to oppose the liberalism granted to the Church by Reformation. These tracts profoundly affected the life of the English Church. The movement failed in its immediate object of altering the character of the English Church. But the Oxford Movement exercised a great influence on the intellectual life of the time. The Oxford Movement helped to revive interest in medieval art, in which a whole school of poets and painters found their inspiration.